Recently, one of my older comparison videos has been getting a little bit of a bump in the YouTube algorithm, and it got me thinking about Horimiya again. This anime was one of my first forays into the romance genre, and in some ways I still think that no other show quite reaches its highs. Its 13-episode main season is everything you could ask for from a romance. Characters are interesting and relatable, and actually grow and change as the episodes pass by. The dialogue is wickedly sharp, really cutting to the core of what love is and why we love each other in as few words as possible. Throw in a great cast of side characters and funny moments that properly balance the more serious ones, and you have an anime that I personally still hold up as a gold standard for the genre. It's the only show that I really feel a sense of melancholy whenever it finishes. That wonderfully bittersweet longing to spend more time in this story. Horimiya's view of love is very three-dimensional. Different characters love each other in different ways. No two relationships looking the same. For such a lively show though, almost all of these friends have doubts and fears that have huge impacts on their lives. Like all of us in real life, they're hesitant to share these parts of themselves with others. Horimiya uses this dynamic to draw its own definition of love. For as many different friendships and romances as there are in this anime, one thing remains constant. To love someone requires you to be vulnerable around them. What does Horimiya do to tie these two feelings together? And why is this such a powerful idea about how we love both the people around us and ourselves? I think there's no better place to start than by looking at the titular couple, Hori and Miyamura. Immediately, their characters are defined by the things they hide from others. Hori is a caretaker to her younger brother, and forgoes a lot of a typical high schooler's life to maintain her home. Miyamura is covered in piercings and tattoos, a far cry from the reserved persona he gives off at school. Their first connection is by chance, which I think is fitting. Voluntarily showing this side of themselves would require a lot of courage that they frankly don't have at the moment. But once that wall is torn down, Hori and Miyamura grow closer rapidly. Having their fears exposed suddenly like that was extremely vulnerable, but the acceptance each shows was all it took for love to start to bloom. This anime doesn't minimize the insecurities we have about ourselves, but it does show how easy it is to love once those doubts are out in the open. Episodes 4 and 5 are another great example of this. When Hori gets sick, Miyamura is there to care for her without her asking. We get a look into Hori's head, and the damage that her mother being absent so much had on her growing up. The weight of feeling abandoned and shouldering so much responsibility is clear on Hori. When Miyamura goes to leave, her panic and distress is a very vulnerable moment. For as brash and strong-willed as Hori can be, she is very guarded of her real feelings. But with this little window she gives to Miyamura of how she really feels, it allows them to affirm their commitment to each other in clearer terms. Having flaws does not make us broken, it makes us human. Only by asking for help, by allowing our loved ones to support us, can we have those relationships that are so essential. And yet, the show doesn't resolve things right here. Miyamura confesses his love to Hori, but only when it appears she's asleep. There's always reminders of how hard it can be to be vulnerable in this show, and it can make it painfully relatable. Hori knows that she loves him too, but the fear of changing their relationship, even for the better, makes her withdraw. Even the true start of their romantic relationship comes in more veiled language to Hori's father. I know that there's a little bit of eye-rolling sometimes about how in romance anime, characters in relationships will still be very awkward around each other, but in Horimiya I appreciate it much more because it's all still serving the purpose of highlighting vulnerability. Just because you're dating someone doesn't mean that it's easy to share things that worry you. Just because you love someone doesn't mean that talking about everything going on in your head is as simple as opening a window. Being vulnerable is a scary thing to do, and I appreciate the deft hand Horimiya takes towards looking at that dynamic. Outside of the main couple, the show has plenty of touchpoints with this core idea. All of the other relationships also examine different parts of being vulnerable and how that intersects with love. Yuki carries so much self-resentment and covers it up with a bright exterior. She only even begins to find love with Toru once she grapples with that side of herself and gives a glimpse of it to him. On the flip side, Sakura is such a devastating character because she does find the courage to be vulnerable, but things don't work out. Sengoku tries to project this presidential aura, but he loves Remi in large part because she sees the softer side of him and loves him even more for it. All of the relationships, friendships or otherwise, are all about characters finding the courage to share parts of themselves they're ashamed of, and the bridges that are formed between them when they do. I think that's a huge part of why this friend group feels so fleshed out and real. They are not perfect people, and we can intensely relate to their fears and insecurities. Seeing them reach out to one another and find love is immensely rewarding as a result. Horimiya understands that being honest about how we feel is really hard. Often we even lie to ourselves, rather than confront why we're having darker thoughts and fears. But if we are to love someone, accept and know them for all of who they are, there's a need to be vulnerable together. This anime really gets that, and shows us over and over again how difficult that first hurdle can be, but how rewarding making the leap is. Seeing characters find the courage to be vulnerable to their loved ones in big and small ways across both seasons of the show is what makes it so gripping to watch, and a special show to me personally. Speaking of which, I know many of you may not have even noticed this, but on my channel page, I have this little graphic depicting my 3 favorite anime. I've been kicking this around for a long time, and after a recent rewatch of this show, I think it's time for a shakeup. Apologies to Love is War, which is still one of my favorites and an absolute delight, but it is getting bumped from my top 3. Also, Frieren is getting pushed a spot down, which means Horimiya is slotting into my second spot of favorite anime. As a reminder, this is simply my preferences, not my objective look at what is the best anime ever. But yeah, after giving this show another run and being just as moved as the first time I watched it, I couldn't deny it any longer. That scene of Hori analyzing Yuki's character sealed it for me. Some of that dialogue is so biting. Even when she desperately wants something, she'll never say so out loud. And she'll never say, "I love this," or "I want this" with all her heart. So the things she loves or wants tend to escape her. I genuinely get chills every time I watch that. Simply masterful characterization in just a few lines. I'm also glad to show that I do think about this ranking all the time, even if there haven't been any changes since I first made it. And that ends today's episode of Love and Anime. I hope you enjoyed. It's almost difficult to talk about a show I love this much in a funny way. It's like my feelings are so strong that they threaten to override my ability to be concise or pointed. With the ranking switch up too, it got me thinking about other shows that could enter the top 3. So I'm specifically asking for you to drop your suggestions for anime I should watch and cover in the comments below. Even if you've mentioned them before, getting a list refresh would be much appreciated. Thanks in advance. If you enjoyed the video today and like video essays about romance, anime, and romance anime, liking and subscribing helps a ton and will keep you in the loop, as does hitting the hype button on the mobile app. I'm Slam Anime, and I'll see you next time.